There we go. All right. So Nathan Long is the CEO of Quest Trust Company. He's overseeing the operations of the company and aiding in the improvement of practices implemented. He has aided in the growing of the company to over 90 employees located in 4 different cities with continued expansion expected. He also holds the title of Certified IRA Services Professional, CISP, from the Institute of Certified Bankers. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Nathan. Let you share your screen. And those of you who are attending and watching this particular session, if you have any questions throughout, find that Q&A box and type in any questions that you have, and we'll get through as many of them as we can towards the end of the event. Not towards the end of the event, but towards the end of the session. So take it away, Nathan.
Hey, Dan. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the nice introduction. I always get embarrassed when people are talking like me. Like I said, you can interrupt me too as we go along. If you have questions that you think are relevant to interrupt in the chat box or anything else, Dan, I really appreciate you guys taking the time. There's a lot to be said about self-directed IRAs and what they can do from a commercial standpoint. Again, my name is Nathan Long. I'm the president of Quest Trust. I used to be the CEO, but just recently I had to switch my title to president, which is much harder to spell than CEO. But I get the opportunity, or have had the opportunity over the course of my lifetime, because of my role at Quest, to see a lot of transactions, and I've been able to participate in them from a personal level on several different ways and stuff. So I should have some pretty good information to help you out. Now, what Quest does is we hold private assets inside of tax leveraged accounts or retirement accounts. And this helps you in a lot of ways. A lot of people don't totally understand what we have, so we're going to talk about different things. It's kind of important to understand that at Quest, we really don't sell anything at all. Matter of fact, we're strictly forbidden from selling anything. We don't give tax or legal or investment advice. We don't endorse any products. We're simply a service company. We don't even sell education. A lot of people think that because we do a lot of educational type of stuff. But with Quest, we make our money whenever we process transactions. And we make that money when people do good investments. We also charge that money when people do bad investments. Right? So it's really important to take the time and do your own due diligence. With Quest or any other self-directed IRA company, they're legally obligated to process whatever transaction you tell them to process. So if you signed off on it, whether we think it's a good deal or a bad deal or anything else, so make sure that you do your own due diligence is my big thing. And if anyone ever comes to you and says, hey, I'm from Quest or I'm from his and I have this investment, they're probably not telling the truth. People at Quest don't have investments, and that's not how it works. So enough with that. So what I'm going to try to teach you is kind of a twofold part, because to me, there's two sides of people who are investing in commercial real estate. There's the passive investor, a guy that's throwing in the money into the ring, and there's the lead investor. And this is the guy that's putting the deals together, gathering the investors, getting the loan from the bank. And it's important to understand the two positions. And I'm going to try to speak to both of them. Some of this speech is going to be good about how to use other people's IRAs. In other words, how to raise money to fund your deals, your commercial deals. Other ones, it's going to be good thought process for you if you're a passive investor and what you want to look at and think about and do. And I also talk a lot about where to find more information. If you find that you have a question going along, you can always call our 800 hotline. You can ask all types of questions. And that's a free service, whether you're a client or not. Even if you're a client with some other custodian, I'd rather have you get the correct education to make the proper decisions as you go through your things. So basically, I'm Nathan Long. I'm the president of a self-directed trust company. What is it? What is a self-directed IRA? A lot of people are a little bit confused with it. And the truth is I like to say there's really no such thing. Self-direction is just a marketing term. An IRA is an IRA is an IRA. There's no legal distinguish between an IRA with Quest and say an IRA with Fidelity. We all have to be FDIC insured. We're overseen, here I'm overseen by the Texas Banking Commission because we're based out of Texas. So we're regulated the same way. So what's the difference? Because if I went to Charles Schwab or Fidelity or one of these guys, and I'm like, hey, I want to buy some real estate, I want to go buy this little apartment complex in my IRA, what would they say? They say they couldn't do it. And here's the difference. Companies like Fidelity or Charles Schwab are publicly traded. That's the publicly traded assets is what they hold. And they're licensed to do so. They're licensed securities agents, and they can sell you stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, all the things that you're familiar with. And they get paid a commission when that occurs, and all that's good. So when you bring your bucket of money and you had, an IRA, you brought it over to Fidelity or something, you set it down. Hey, this is my 401k from where I worked and all my life and done my things. They'll go, great, here's this nice selection of investments. I got some stocks and some bonds and some mutual funds. We can talk about asset allocation and everything else. When you bring money to a company like Quest and sit down, we go, great, thanks. Let us know what you need. See, at Quest, we only hold private assets and they hold publicly traded assets. And we're not licensed securities agents. We're not selling you the investment. You have to know what it is that you're investing in. We don't tell you that at all. So what's important to understand, whether you're the passive investor or the lead investor, is this, that most clients don't have just an account with Quest. They maintain their account with Fidelity or Charles Schwab or Edward Jones or whoever the normal custodian is, right? And they move over to Quest just what they need to do that transaction. If it's a $50,000 buy-in into this transaction, that's what they need is $50,000 or $100,000 or whatever the amount is. That's what we would move in, all right? And as soon as we generated some money or built up some cash, we would scoop that out and transfer that back to the other custodian. You don't want to leave large amounts of cash sit with your self-directed custodian because it just sits there. It's not getting any interest. It's FDIC insured and it's safe and all of that, but again, it's just sitting there. So the proper way is this transfer back and forth, where you let your normal custodian keep your money moving in normal type assets. And when you do an unusual purchase, like the purchase of real estate or an LLC or maybe a note or a loan inside of the IRA, then you do that. Now, that being said, I would do this. I would know how long it takes to move the money from the existing custodian to Quest. A lot of that depends on that existing custodian. And some of those custodians move very, very quickly. I keep picking on Charles Schwab and Fidelity. Those are some of the big guys out there, and they're really pretty quick at moving. I can move money most of the time within a week if you authorize a wire and those type of things, and most transactions aren't occurring that way. Where some other banks and things can take weeks, and sometimes that can spoil your deal. At Quest, we try to track that. So if you know your custodian, you can call them and say, how long does it normally take? What's the procedure for moving that money? So you have an idea for it. Okay. So again, why would you want a self-directed IRA? Well, there's a lot of different reasons. I think diversification is one. Sorry about that, flipping all over the place here. Diversification is important. I always hear it. You must have your portfolio diversified. And then no one has any real estate in their portfolio at all. I'm like, I don't think you're really diversified unless you have some assets based in real estate, which doesn't mean that everybody should be a property manager. Matter of fact, there's some people out there that are god awful at being property managers. I know, Dan, I'm one of them. I mean, you should see me try to collect rent. It's ridiculous. Oh my God, your cat's sick this week and you can't pay? Oh, terrible. So a guy like me and a lot of, and the reason why I'm not very good at being a property manager is I have a full-time job. I work here at Quest, being the president here actually is a lot of work. So for me, how is it a guy like me invest? Well, commercial real estate works really well. I have a lot of passive investments, and I'll talk a little bit about those. Those work well. I also do some lending, so there's other ways other than being direct property manager to have real estate. I should also be clear and honest in that my portfolio isn't diversified at all. I believe if you really get good at doing something, just continue to do it and do it well. And I'm pretty good at lending money, and I'm pretty good at finding passive real estate deals, and those have done really well for me. And that's what I do. I don't have a lot of diversification in there. So, but I think you should be diversified. But I don't akin to my own things. Tax savings. I think that a lot of understanding about building wealth, we should spend some time understanding tax savings. The Quest will help. Like Quest will help you to understand the tax benefit, but real estate is a wonderful tool against the tax man. And when it's used correctly, both inside an IRA and outside an IRA. And if you're taking time to learn how to build wealth, make sure that you're taking some of that time to learn some tax saving strategies. Right? And if you think that you get tax saving strategies when you go see your CPA or tax preparer, that's not where you get them, man. They teach you how to pay taxes. You need to have some thought process beforehand about how to do deals where we avoid taxes. And especially when we start talking about building wealth and generational type of wealth where we're trying to pass wealth on. And we'll talk a lot about that. But here's something that I think is really interesting that I think that a lot of people don't think about with investing is what I call the social investing or social concept behind it. Most people are not paying very much attention to what they're actually invested in. Like they just get a mutual fund and it's like spread out. You got 40 or 50 different companies in there. You might have a S&P 500 or whatever. You're investing in a whole bunch of companies. You're not looking at each individual company and doing research and checking it. You're paying someone else to do that for you. The problem with that is sometimes when you peel that open and look at the companies that you're actually investing in, you're going to find that some of those won't align with your ethical or your political intentions. They may be doing stuff that is not stuff you believe in. And I find this quite often. I think that if you looked in, took an honest look at each companies that most people own, you're going to find that you're investing in things that might not be very savory to you. So when I invest, what happens to that? I'm putting my money on the table, and typically what's happening is my real estate investors taking a property who it's not being managed very well. It could be a blight in our community. It might not have very good renters and attract the people that aren't that. And what are they doing? They're going to buy that property and they're going to fix it up. And by fixing it up, they're going to buy wood and paint and laborers and management people and things. In other words, we're stimulating the economy. And I typically invest very locally. I could drive by and see this being developed. And the whole time I'm getting an above average return. So when I add it all up, there's a lot of benefits outside of the money that I'm receiving. It's that I know where my money's invested in. It's invested in the community where I live, work, and play. It's creating jobs, where I live, work, and play. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. I don't think that real estate investors talk enough about the fact that when you invest with them, you're really making a very socially conscious investment on top of a good return, typically. And then last thing is I always think that you should invest in things that you know and understand. If you understand real estate and know how to make that's what you should be investing in. If you don't know how a biotech company makes money, you probably shouldn't be investing in it. And sometimes real estate offers opportunities. It's a lot easier to find something that you can specialize in or understand in the world of real estate. And so I think that self-direction allows you to invest in things that you know and understand. Now, not all my clients invest in real estate. A lot of people don't think that, but a lot of my clients hold things like oil wells, spaceships, soy sauce companies. I see all types of strange things that are being done. But because me and Quincy understand real estate a lot, and we talk a lot about real estate, of course, a lot of our clients are also invested in real estate as well. So there are different types of accounts that can be self-directed. There's and I want to break these up into different types. There's personal ones and there's employer ones, and there's some specialty accounts that are really fun. And You can really do well to understand the different types of accounts, or to have an IRA specialist that you know here at Quest if you're out raising money from IRAs. Because you might, you and your client might not realize that there might be a lot more money in a certain household to invest with than just the bucket that you were looking about. Because there's different types of real estate accounts that can be invested in. And most households, when you look at them, you have a 401k for her, and he had a 403b, and then he went to work for someone else, and so now he's got a current 401k, and he's got someone told him to get a Roth IRA, and they got a covered L, and we can put all these different amounts and accounts together, and an IRA specialist from Quest will talk to your client and kind of help sort through some of those things. So, and you probably shouldn't do that, because it does take me about 4 years to train an IRA specialist. And it's a lot of knowledge in there that they have. So let's talk about these different types of accounts. There's a traditional and a Roth IRA. These are the personal accounts. I don't know of an investment guru anywhere on the planet that doesn't talk about the benefits of the Roth IRA. Why? Well, if you meet two requirements, have had a Roth IRA for 5 tax years and above the age of 59 and a half, all the distributions come out tax-free and penalty-free. So if I take a little bit of money and make it worth a whole bunch of money inside a Roth IRA, and I've met those requirements, it's all tax-free. Where a traditional IRA, when I put the money in, I get a tax deduction for putting it in, so it reduces my tax deduction that year. But as it grows and it makes more money, when I go to take it out, I will be taxed on it at that time, or that will add to my modified adjusted growth income at that time. So a lot of people in the investment field think that the Roth IRA is the most important one to talk about because of the tax-free growth, and that's not actually true. The traditional IRA is much more important, and let me explain to you why. The traditional IRA is where all the money goes from, like your 401k or any other employer plan, where the employer is getting a tax deduction for matching your contributions, where you're getting a tax deduction. And over a period of years, it's grown into a large bucket. If you look at most people's households, most of their investment money is going to fall into what I call the traditional IRA bucket. Now, here at Quest, we teach a lot. We teach a lot about doing something called a conversion, which is where we take the traditional IRA and we turn it into a Roth IRA. And in doing so, we can do that without any penalties at any income level at any age, but it does create you do have to pay tax as you move it over. It adds to your modified adjusted growth income. If you're really going to take $50,000 and make it worth $500,000, dang, I would pay the tax on it when it was worth 50 instead of trying to pay the tax on it when it's worth 500. That makes a lot of sense to me. But as a president of Quest, and I would warn you if something, if you're gathering money for the investment, if you're the person there, that most of the people, 84% of all the investments that occur from Quest come out of the traditional IRA. Most people never want to pay that tax up front. They did the tax deferred because they're trying to keep their taxes down. And the idea of paying a large tax bill right up front can hurt you. And I've had people talk so much about the Roth conversion that the people got confused and thought that the only way they could do this investment was through the Roth IRA. And therefore, they would have to pay a lot of taxes to do that conversion. And a lot of people don't want to do that. They would rather just so you focus on the investment and let the IRA specialist talk to them about traditional or Roth, or what would happen is the best way to go, because there's a lot that goes into that. If you want to study about a Roth conversion, I do have a class online on how to analyze a Roth conversion. It's really fun and would give you a lot of information and be helpful to you, whether you're on the raising money side or the other. But both traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs can be self-directed. In addition to the personal types of plans, we also have employer plans that can be self-directed. I'm not going to spend too much time on these. These are for people who have small businesses or self-employed. Even though you notice this individual 401k or the individual Roth 401k, I'm not talking about 401k at work. If you had your own consulting firm, or maybe you're a realtor that gets commissions, or you have Bob's haircutting service. I don't know. All of those you could also have an employer plan as well as one of those personal plans. So most people have their employer plan at work, like their 401k, like I do. You know, I'm a W-2 employee of Quest, and I have a 401k here. And while I'm employed here, I can't select those investments. It has to take a separation of service where I've left my job in order to use those investment funds. That's not always true. Different employer plans are different. Some do allow for what's called in-service transfers, like if you've reached a certain age and you can continue to work. So again, talk to your IRA specialist about which ones of your employer plans can be used for self-direction. Most of the time, though, that is moved into the traditional IRA. Of course, if it was a Roth or had a Roth component to it, then that would roll into the Roth IRA, and then that's where we invest from. But sometimes we do have people that carry SEP IRAs or simple IRAs, or we have this very, very powerful program called the individual solo 401k that for a select few people work really well. Again, more information, employer plans online at Quest Trust. But these next two are really fun, and a lot of people don't think about them. Man, this is probably my favorite class to teach when I get a chance to teach it, which is about the health savings accounts and education accounts, because it just blows people away that you can take an education account and end up buying real estate with that, including apartment complexes. We can take that small little account and partner it with the larger accounts, because I'm not going to have $100,000 in a health savings account or a covered education account. But a person may have $80,000 in their traditional IRA, $10,000 in their Roth IRA, and $5,000 or $6,000 in their health savings account. And their health savings account can participate in the same way that their IRA did. And these are extremely flexible accounts that most people don't understand just how powerful they are. And the importance of building wealth inside your health savings account is probably one of the keys to wealth building that I think most people miss and overstep. Check out that class, the health savings class. Here, one little IRA fun fact that will absolutely save, if we got 50 people on the line now, this will save someone some money. You can fund a health savings account one time in your life from your traditional IRA, SEP IRA, 401k, whatever. Those are tax deferred accounts. We can move money from a tax deferred account into our health savings account. And we can, that's an account that is taxable to a tax-free account, an account that you can't use until you're 59 and a half, to an account you can use right now. And that movement is not taxable. One time in your life, you can do that. So fun accounts. Most people have never thought about it. Don't mix these up with things that are called flexible spending accounts where you had to use it up before the end of the year. It just says you roll it and it just go and go, and they grow completely tax-free. And what's kind of cool about them is your contributions that you make into the account are also tax deductible. So it's like tax deductible going in and tax-free coming out. It's an amazing way to actually invest. And like I said, you can invest all of those accounts individually or partner. You'll see, if you looked at my personal investments in my IRA, you would see that almost all of them are partnered like what I have down here. As a matter of fact, there might be 5 to 10 different IRAs with different individual amounts. Some of the amounts might be as low as 2 or 3% of the investment amount. Well, why would I do that? Well, I have children. My children are grown now, but no grandchildren yet, but I have nieces and nephews. And what we do in my family is when we have an investment, we take these small amounts of monies, like from the nieces and the nephews, and allow them to put a couple of grand into these investments, and then teach them about investment through investing their own money at a very, very early age. Oh my God, this is powerful. This is so powerful for both sides of the fence, whether you're trying to raise money or whether you're trying. Why is it powerful for why you're trying to raise money? Because it involves the whole family, right? You may have one investor involved, but you have an investor's family. if you can get some of the other members of the family participating in this same investment, what's going to happen is these investors, even the ones that have little bitty amounts and are young, are going to grow up to be old. You're basically planting seeds for your future investor. You're teaching about investing now. By allowing my son to participate as he was growing up into some of my investments, including some of the passive ones, and by partnering these different IRAs together, he learned a lot about investing. And now he works with me at Quest, and he's a very competent investor. But it was a lot of fun, and it really brings our family together. Investing is a generational thing in my family. I work with my mom, who works with my son. Everybody works together, making different types of deals and loans, and it works really well. As far as for if we have all these different IRAs set up, and we're filling out a K1, is that going to be a problem for the lead? The answer is not really, because who is the real partner is Quest Trust Company for the benefit of all these different IRAs to a different amount. So it's all reporting back to the same EIN number. It's all the same person signing off on them, all the same things. So it usually doesn't have any effect at all. They're perfectly happy to have 10 IRAs on there versus one. It makes no difference to them at all, because their portion of it, or the work you have to do, is exactly the same. So there are restrictions on these accounts, which leads me back to understanding the difference between a lead and a passive on an investor. There are people restrictions, transaction restrictions, and investment restrictions. And it's really important to understand what these restrictions are, because if we do one of these restrictions, it becomes a prohibited transaction. And a prohibited transaction could be one of the highest fine areas of IRS codes. It could be really nasty. You really want to try to avoid these. Again, I have a whole class on disqualified people things. So let's go back. People restrictions on IRA. There are people who are disqualified from doing business to the IRA. Well, what can't they do? They can't buy, they can't sell, they can't trade, they can't extend services, and they can't receive a benefit either directly or indirectly. And who do you think these people are? Well, primarily it starts with the IRA owner. Yes, you are disqualified person to your own IRA. It seems weird, I know, but the idea is you get to direct your IRA, you get to tell it what to do, but that money's not really yours. That money's not yours until you take it out of that account. It's held in trust until that point. And it is a special type of trust, all right? It is a trust with special tax consequences that go along with it. And so, though you get to decide all the investments, you can tell your IRA to go buy a house, but you couldn't go live in that house. That wouldn't be proper, right? If your IRA bought a house, all the expenses from that house would come from the IRA, and all the income from rent or anything else from the sale of it would go back to the IRA. None of them. You completely treat your IRA separate, which leads me back to the lead and the like. So if you're a lead on a deal, that means you're going to the bank, you're putting your name and your social security number down and all that type of stuff on it. Your IRA should not be involved in that investment. You use other people's IRA. You take your IRA and put it in someone else's deal. But your IRA never goes into your own deal. That's what's really important to understand. In addition to you, there's a group of people that are equally disqualified, right? Those include you, your spouse, your lineal ascendants and descendants, their spouses, and companies. Any of those people own, control, manage, or highly compensated. So you, spouse, children, and parents, their spouses, and companies that those people own, control, or manage. If you have questions, ask questions. It's not really hard, but it's really important to understand. Everyone wants, they're a thing. You want to take your IRA, put it in your own deal. Boom, you can't do that. You always put your deal in someone else's your IRA in someone else's deal, and other people put their IRAs in your deal. That's how it always has to be. All right. I'm sure Dan will tell you. There are also transaction restrictions, and transaction restrictions are really the things that we just talked about. So it's the things that the people can't do, which is buy, sell, trade, loan, or extend services, or receive a benefit either directly or indirectly. I already talked about that. There are two investment restrictions, oddly enough, that really have zero effect on us. One of those is life insurance contract. That's correct. And collectibles. Collectibles are specifically defined as works of art, gems or metal, or alcoholic beverage collections. Can't do that. I still think if you're buying booze in your IRA, you probably got a bigger problem. But anyway, they usually don't get them. So what could you invest with a self-directed IRA? Just about anything that you can take title to, okay? At Quest, we break it up into different departments: real estate, notes, and what we call private entity. Almost all commercial property fall into the private entity area. What that means is we're buying into an LLC or a subscription agreement. You can do that inside your IRA. So, but the process for purchasing real estate, or the process for purchasing an entity, or the process for loaning money out of your IRA is quite a bit different. So we have different departments that you deal with for the different notes and things that you have. At Quest, our IRA specialists, though, are always officers of the company. And you can always go back to your IRA specialist and ask additional questions, or if you're having problems in some portion of it, you can let us know. So let's take a look at some actual case studies. These are real deals that people did. They're actual investments that people did. And I'm going to start with one of my own, okay? This is me. This was not, I don't know where I just found this picture on the internet, but I purchased a shopping center in Louisiana. It was actually purchased through our 401k here at work. So it was a couple of us. So what did we do is we were asked to put a minimum amount of $100,000 into it. I was a passive investor. I guess it's almost been 7 years, but at this point, but in the last 7 years, I have received back equity of $109,000. So I've got my 100 grand back plus a little bit. There has been some principal payout. So the equity, I was trying to figure it out, was right around $70,200 for what I suspect that I pay. And I've had some people go, wow, Nathan, I've seen you do real estate deals that are a lot better. You know, that's not that big. Well, first of all, it's pretty good return. All right. But I always tell people on this particular deal, example of me absolutely knocking it over the fence. And I go, well, you know, that's a good return, but is it really knocking it over the fence? I said, yep, I absolutely hit for the moon on this investment. And they keep scratching their head and go, no, you know, hitting for the moon, you know, 500% or whatever it is. No, I hit for the moon, and they don't get it. And here's why. You see, in that 6 years, Quest, which is what I'm responsible for running, has tripled in size 4 times, or doubled in size 4 times, right? You get what I'm saying? I focused on my business and didn't have to focus on my investment. And that was a critical time period of my life. If I had a bunch of investments that were eating into my time and taking it away, there is no way I would have been able to grow Quest. So I absolutely knocked it over the fence with this investment, and a lot of them like it because of the fact is they were truly passive. And Dan, maybe you might be able to speak to some of that at the end, but a lot of people don't understand that. Okay, again, there was almost no work for me at all, right? And I think I said this before, you couldn't invest your own IRA into your own deal. How about this one? This one's cute. This couple received some coaching, and this is the first deal they ever did. Okay, and literally all I did for these slides is cut and paste their letter that they wrote me, thanking me about the deal that they did. We're a multifamily real estate investor. Okay, him and his wife were foreign born. They met in engineering school. They were hard workers, good little savers. And over the course of their life, they'd saved $1 million. So to say that they weren't already successful isn't true. They had a good amount of money that they had saved up. It was inside their IRAs, 401k from where they were working at, Halliburton or something like that. I forget actually where, but there. They located a property that they bought. They had to get an outside loan. Here, let me go to this next slide. It kind of tells the story a little bit better. So they purchased the property for just under $2 million. They had about $225,000 in rehab. They picked up a loan for 1.1, almost $1.2 million. That loan came from North American Savings Bank. That was a non-recourse loan for 5.5%. Had to be non-recourse because the IRA was the borrower, not the investor. They're able to hold the property and did some improvements to it, got the rents up, and then pretty quickly sold it for $3.6 million, creating a net gain of $1.4 million, and basically more than doubling what they had made working their entire life savings as hardworking people in a pretty short period of time. So some things about this story to think about. When they did this deal, they didn't put any money in their pockets at all. All of that money went into their IRA. They were okay with that because they were at the age that they could remove money if they needed to out of it, tax-free and penalty-free. They were not the managing member of the LLC. They had to have someone else pay to be the managing member of the LLC because their IRA was the investor. So that's important to understand. There was an LLC, but they're not the ones that signed the checks and stuff. They had to hire someone else to do that, right? This investment could have created, because it was debt leverage, probably created some unrelated business income tax in their IRA, though they dealt with it through some of the series and the ways to deal with it. You can see my class about unrelated business income tax to get a little bit more. Now, I want to ask a question, and this is pretty funny. People go, wow, pretty cool deal, right? Would you do the deal? And I got to tell you, I would not have done that deal. And people go, what? What? Why not? They made all this money. Well, for me, I probably would have done the deal, but not in its entirety. I would have looked for a money partner or someone else to split the deal with. Look what they did. They tied up their entire IRA, and then they debt leveraged it, and they were doing it on unexperienced property. I think the coaches would have been wise to have partnered them with someone else on their first deal rather than put the entire IRA at risk like that. And that's the truth. Though it turned out very well for them, I probably would have backed away from that strategy. And I think the coach could have done a better job of partnering a couple of his students together on that particular deal and did it. But again, that's just my criticism from my way of thinking. It could have ended up where they tied up the property not gone as well as it did, and the money could have been tied up for a very long time or something like that. So it went very well for them, but I always think about the worst case scenario, and I think that you've got to be prepared for that and that's too many eggs in one basket, in my opinion. This is a cool one. So this is a friend of mine, and this happened at the end of last year. And tell you a little bit of the story is Chris is a real estate investor who most of his life has done residential property. And honestly, what he does is he buys houses and he fixes them up and he sells them. Does pretty good. He's done it for a while. But he's been dabbling in the commercial field. And the way Chris finances his houses is he has private investors. He has investors that over the years have learned to trust him. So when he goes and buys a house, they loan him the money privately and the money to fix it up. And he pays, secures it, note and trust, pays them off. And a lot of those clients are, use their IRA money to put to them. So Chris found this property and he's going to buy it for $680,000. Nothing to do with his IRAs yet. All right. So he's going to buy it for $680,000. And to him, it's one big fit. It needs some roof repairs and it needs something done to the parking lot or something. It's going to be $200,000 or $300,000. But he's got his investors lined up to loan him the money, basically $1 million. And he's going to just buy it cash and fix it up. And he's going to try to sell it for $1.5 million or something like that. That was his general plan. So he personally puts it under contract for $5,000. And what's interesting is while he was getting together the rest of the stuff, he talks to the guy and says, "Oh my God, that property is perfect. I really need a property just like that to run my business. Um, would you just wholesale it to me? Would you wholesale me your contract?" And Chris agreed. And what they agreed on the wholesale price was $78,000. All of a sudden, Chris realized something. I'm going to turn $5,000 into $78,000 really fast. He had some problems. His wife had paid a lot of money that year. He had paid out on several deals, so he had made a lot of money. They just had a baby daughter. Um, so he had already had a lot of tax year. If this $78,000 falls into his income this year, it's going to crush him, right? He's going to pay half of it to tax because that's short-term income. So what he did is he went in and instead of buying it in his name, he changed the contract, and instead of his LLC, he changed it to read Quest IRA for the benefit of his Roth IRA, which he made a small contribution to, his wife's Roth IRA, which he made a small contribution to, and then he made a small contribution to his new daughter's Coverdell education account. As the money came back in, what happened is Chris's Roth IRA received $39,000 of tax-free growth. His wife's Roth IRA received $35,000 of tax-free growth, and his child's ESA made $3,000, and he didn't have to pay tax on any of that amount. Okay, so some key points to this story was he was able to get he was realized he was going to get a whole amount of money really quickly. And the reason he was able to do that is because he didn't assign the contract to his IRA because that would have been selling it. He actually went back and changed the original contract at the title company and said, "Hey, I want to take the title like this." He had the buyer sell it. Then he had Quest send the title company $5,000 in earnest money and had the title company return his original $5,000, basically backing it up in time. All right. Again, the profits were completely tax-free since they put it into the Roths and their Coverdell education accounts, but he couldn't put any of that money in his pocket now. And this is a young couple, so all of that savings is for some time in the future. None of it is being used right now. But kind of a cool deal. It just kind of happened. So a lot of people don't know who Quest are, but Quest is ran by their employees. When me and Quincy started doing Quest, it was a very small company. We were real estate investors, and we really had the idea that we would make our money off the real estate deals that we found. And we have, honestly. We made a lot of great relationships, and we've learned a lot, and it's been really wonderful for us. But over the years, we've always rolled up most of the money in. 97% of all the money Quest has ever made has gone back into Quest. And that's allowed us to do some things, is we haven't changed our fees in over 9 years. I have one of the lowest closing fees in the cost to close out an account in the business, and most of the time I won't even charge it. Because I want you to come back, and I don't want to keep you there with these big account closing fees, right? And my employees have access to the books. It is an employee-ran company. We run with open books, and so when you call up the phone and say, "Hey, how can I make your day?" The employees are actually really invested, and they really do want to see you have a good experience. And I think that you'll find that to be helpful. Everyone always asks, so let's get it over with. How much does it cost? How much does it cost? It's super cheap. Uh, if your custodian fees are stopping your deal, you either have a really bad deal or you have the wrong custodian. Let's take a look. I have 3 different fee schedules, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. First, kind of go down to the middle of the thing where it says transaction fee. When you open an account, you have to pay $100 to open an account. Now, that's not $100 for each account. If you pay $100, you can open an account for you, your wife, if you get a health savings account, a Coverdell for your child. And I think the special is right now, even if you open an account now, and then a year from now you decide that you need a Roth IRA or something else, you don't have to pay that $100 again. It's a one-time, once in your life fee. And then every time you purchase a house or something, you'll have a purchase fee of $125. So a typical deal starts with that purchase fee of that second thing of $125. And then most of the commercial deals I see use option one. Most of the time we need a 50 or 100,000 type of buy-in. That's typical of the investment. Um, and the cheapest way to do that is to pay $295, and that's a flat fee a year. So it costs you $125 plus $295 the first year, and then $295 each year that's kept in your IRA. So it's very, very narrow. The option two works a little differently. This is, let's say, I'm buying something else, not commercial property. Let's say I'm buying lots for $1,000 a piece, and I got 10 of them. I wouldn't want to pay $295 for each lot. That would make me broke. Well, we could take this one, and what this does is you take the total value of your account, and you take the total value of your account, and if it's in that range, that's the amount you pay quarterly. I got a touch screen. I keep touching my own screen. So, so if you have just a small account, maybe you just holding some wholesale auctions or something like that, it's less than $5,000. It could be as low as $24.75 a quarter or 99 bucks a year. My average client pays between $200 to $400 a year. It's not a lot of money. How do you start one? Well, you just get the adoption agreement off of our website or call one of my IRA specialists. You basically fill in name, rank, and serial number. I always encourage you making it your spouse an interested party so they can also get information on your account. It's a checkbox type of account that you need and fill out your information. And then take a little bit of time to tell us who gets it when you die. We do primary and contingent beneficiaries. It's really important to pay a lot of attention to who your beneficiaries are in all of your retirement accounts. And the reason for that is this document actually supersedes both probate and your will. So most people that mess up something in their retirement tends to be on these retirement accounts. So upon their death, make sure you're paying attention to, if you have life-changing events, get married or have another child or something like that, that you always go back to your IRAs and make sure that your beneficiaries and your 401ks at work, because again, that will supersede your will. And then we got a signer page there. That's my personal email address. Did we have any questions, Dan?
Yes, we actually do have a couple of questions that have come in here, and so I'll go ahead and tee them up for you and let you go ahead and answer those as well. First question is, I have several 401ks from previous employers. I would like to roll them all into one self-directed IRA to be used to purchase multifamily real estate syndications. Is that possible with Quest?
Yes. That's typically what you want to try to do is gather them all into one. You might keep, if you have some remainder left over that you're not investing, you might want to keep one of your IRAs open, like I said, so that you have a place for the cash. So you might have, remember, even if we invest everything, we have $500,000 and we put it all into a commercial deal, at times that commercial deal is going to spend back a little money, or you may have a little excess. You might have $10,000 or $12,000. You should leave that at the other custodian. Don't completely shut that down, because when this deal pays out, the cash is going to sit with Quest. We're going to want to move that back. Does that make sense? But typically, yes, you don't want to leave all these employer plans around. I would also say this: anytime you exit your employer, always remove the money from the 401k or 403b and put it in an IRA. You have a lot more control and a lot more protection in an IRA a lot of times. And that includes other options. Sometimes if you're having a company take over and company buyout, you get an option to buy out of your 401k. Always take that. Always. And you may not even move the money. You might be at Fidelity. You're just changing it from a Fidelity 401k to a Fidelity IRA, but always take that option. That's a great question.
So the next question here is, can you pay property expenses through the retirement account?
You have to pay property expenses through the retirement account if the IRA owns it. So it would be prohibited if you paid for those expenses out of your own pocket. If your IRA owns a property, all the expenses for owning that property comes from the IRA, and all the income goes back into the IRA. So you always want to make sure that you're leaving enough money in your account if you're directly holding real estate to handle those type of things, those little repairs and things that do come up.
And the next question here is about if I exceed the self-directed IRA income phase out limit, is there an alternative option you recommend?
Well, there really is no income phase out limit. It's a misnomer. Let me explain. You can continue to make contributions into your IRA, right? Past, even after you've reached over the limit for getting the tax deduction. That means that your money goes in without getting a tax deduction, but the basis gets held inside that account. In other words, when I go to take the money out years from now, I've already paid my taxes on that portion on it. I wouldn't have to pay taxes again. So you can make it. Now, what's really amazing about that these days is people are making contributions to their traditional IRA, but there is no income limit for converting to a Roth. And since they don't get the tax deduction on their conversion, they can put their money in their traditional IRA, immediately convert it to a Roth. That means that anybody in America, regardless of how much money they're making, can make a Roth contribution this year. Just put it in the traditional, don't get the tax deduction, immediately move over to a Roth, boom, we got a Roth IRA. We call it doing the two-step here, and we do that a lot. That being said, most of what we're doing with self-directed IRAs isn't really about trying to max out contributions. It's learning how to take the money that we already have in the IRA, try and pay tax on it, and then have it grow tax-free. The real thing is getting the money to make its own money through the skills that we have as real estate investors.
That makes a lot of sense. So the last question I have on here right now. So for those of you who are watching, if you have any questions for Nathan, please feel free to type in those questions. And if for some reason we don't get to one of your questions, or you have further questions that are more, personal or whatever, you can obviously, on the screen there is the phone number as well as Nathan's email. You can reach out to them and they'll put you in contact with one of their reps that can help you further. The next question here is once the property is bought in an IRA, can the IRA pay me, the investor, a salary or consulting fees, etc., since the profits can't go to me, the investor, directly? Very dense stuff I'm trying to understand.
Yes. So you can't receive a benefit either directly or indirectly from any of the investments the IRA makes. The IRA can receive a benefit. Let me give you an example of that. I'm a realtor, and I want to represent my property. I want to find a property that my IRA is going to make. Can I do that? The answer is yeah. Why? Well, because, you're a fiduciary to your IRA and you're bringing to skill all your work and knowledge. Can I get paid for doing it? The answer is no. I cannot receive a commission for doing that particular job. Could I reduce or increase the price of the house, depending on what I'm buying or selling, right, by the amount of my commission and allow my IRA to receive a benefit? Yes, you could do that. You say you must be very, very careful in understanding what you can and can't do, especially when it relates to it. But when it comes down to it, basically you, your spouse, your children or parents or their spouses, and any companies they own, control, manage cannot receive a salary, cannot do any work, cannot receive any profit. Your IRA is for your future, right? That's what you invested in. How do you make money right now? You use other people's IRAs. And that's why these clubs work, right, Dan? It's like people are filling each other's have, wants, and needs. I've got an IRA, I put it in your deal. You got an IRA, you put it in my deal, and that's what works.
That's correct. So I think there might be a comment. I don't know if you want to kind of, say a few things about this. This is from Chad saying some investors are more savvy than others and prefer one to the other for maximum control versus hand holding.
I guess I'm not following.
I think it's just more of a kind of he actually might be referring to
checkbook control.
More of like the checkbook IRA style or something like that.
Yeah, well, that scares me. If you want to bring that up, I'll make some comments on it. So
sure.
There is this theory out there is rather than using a custodian like me, what you do is you have the custodian buy an LLC and you make the IRA only the managing member, and then you hand them the checkbook. And you got checkbook control. You don't need hand holding. Well, here's the problem. There is a large number of IRS codes, and the one case Swanson versus Commissioner doesn't even begin to address the fact that that would be a prohibited transaction in most cases. Just the fact of having you being the managing member of the LLC. How do we know this? Well, I say, well, I know a lot of people who have done this. Yeah, it's been happening for a long time. But the IRS has been citing it down. They started with a letter from the Board of Labor saying that they didn't like this and they're going to look at it and they're going to investigate. What did they do next? They changed our reporting rules. As of last year, custodians no longer just have to report what the value of the IRA is to the thing. We also have to report if there's a privately held LLC inside the account. Hello, why do you think they're looking for this stuff? Man, don't do that. If you have a checkbook control IRA, look at how to get rid of it. All you have to do is put a different managing member into that LLC, maybe your brother or someone like that, or use a solo 401k where you can have checkbook writing authorities. Be very cautious of checkbook control IRAs in today's world. What worked in the past and what we got away with isn't going to work going forward. The IRS is citing it down. And I know a lot of companies that are saying the exact same. I've been saying this for years. I've been the conservative, like, oh, don't do it. Oh, it's weird. And I'm not doing that because Quest, and I don't really have a problem with the LLC. What I have a problem with is the IRA owner being the managing member. If you put your brother in there, another person, a friend, a cousin, something, anybody but you, that's where the problem is. And there's more than that. I have a class too. It's understanding problems and solutions and understanding buying real estate and IRAs. It's a pretty good look at that particular problem.
So there is another more detailed question here, which I will leave for him to reach out to you directly or also emailing on the screen there. We have in the Q&A box, derek.long@questtrust.com for further questions. We're going to be closing this one out with the last question here is, which should be an easy one to answer, is how long does it take to fund a new account with Quest?
Oh, we can fund really fast. So sometimes we can fund the first, like within hours. The real question is how long does it take to get the money into the account? Most of the time, and different custodians have different rates. It takes different times to transfer. Sometimes it's as little as 3 or 4 days. Others could take weeks. It depends on if it's a 401k or what. If you ask Derek specifically where you're moving it from, he can give you more of a specific answer to what you're trying to do.
Great. Well, Nathan, I really appreciate you taking some time with us today and sharing this session. I know it's a topic that a lot of people are not aware of, about being able to use your self-directed IRA for these types of investments. So for those of you who are with us, be sure to reach out to Quest, get an account set up with them. And again, Nathan, thank you so much for being here with us.
You bet. Thank you, Dan, for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, so just a couple of things to wrap things up here. The next session that'll be in this room is actually going to be around that topic of the self-directed IRA, the checkbook IRA and various things like that. And I'll be bringing up some questions to Bernard Reese about that. He'll be talking about that and some of the comments that Nathan had mentioned about the checkbook control IRA. I will be mentioning that as well, and bringing those questions up. And then in room 2, this was going to be the next session will be starting at 11 a.m. Eastern. And so this one will be about checkbook IRA control. And then in room 2, we'll have how to convince investors to invest with you when it's your very first deal. And Holly Williams will be sharing that one with you in room 2. And in room 3, we're going to be having the 4-point guide to profitable relationships with Ike Mutabana. So make sure that you choose one of those 3 and attend them. And a couple things I wanted to mention for you, for those of you who have just joined us, make sure you register for the next summit, nextmfin.com, and that'll give you an entry into winning one of the 3 iPads that we will be doing a drawing on. So there's a couple of ways to enter that drawing. One is to go to nextmfin.com, register for that for the January 2020 summit. So that's for $97. You'll get an entry into the drawing for those iPads. The second thing you can do is go to iTunes, subscribe to the Multifamily Investor Nation podcast, make a review, screen capture that review and send it to Stacy at multifamilyinvestornation.com, and you'll get another entry into it. And then also making sure you're participating throughout the event this weekend. You'll get more registrations. And then there's a couple other ways which we'll mention during and throughout some of the breaks to enter for that prize drawing. So thank you for joining us. We will be coming back here at 11 o'clock, so right at about 15 minutes from now, and we will have in this room Bernard Reese.